Welcome to part 2 of our conversation with Anindya Mahajan. For those of you who haven't watched part 1 yet, Anindya is a 2021 mechanical engineering graduate with a 6 CGPA and had over 2 years of work as a software development engineer at Plivo and Maybank. He has joined Masters in Software Engineering program in fall 2024 at the World Rank 1 Carnegie Mellon University. In the first part, we discuss about his journey from mechanical engineering background to a software engineering domain and how he leveled up as a developer. In this part, we'll be discussing more on his application strategies that got him admits from the likes of UT Austin and CMU and many more with a lower CGPA. So, Anindya, moving ahead, I would love to know, like you mentioned, you put in application to 2025 universities, and also the main idea that you were focused on was increasing the probability to get into a good school. So, did you follow the structure of putting schools into dream, target, safe, or you were just going by what's the best fit for me?
This is where having a spreadsheet really helps.
Yes.
I had a column where I had multiple columns. So for CS specifically, there's a website called CS Ranking. They rank the different universities based on the research output of those universities, and it's a very good proxy for how good that program is going to be, especially if your focus is on research. So I listed those rankings in my spreadsheet and I sorted the list. So for me, there was no safe university. Let me just say that based on my GPA specifically. So yeah, I didn't apply to all my lower category ones, but to the top category ones, I applied to every place. Like UC Berkeley had a MIMS program, information management systems.
Yes.
Again, that's not MSCS, but that's what I was saying. I was trying to apply to anything which would give me an in. So
Yes.
I wanted to, like Avinash was also saying, a huge reason for me is also to be around the best minds and the ability to gain that experiential knowledge. U Michigan is another really good university for CS. There I applied for Master of Information (MSI) program, and yeah, I mean CMU I applied for MSE, which is not MSCS. So yeah, I was still looking at these colleges CS rankings to
Got it.
make the split, and I applied to all the top ones for sure.
Got it. So, moving ahead, can you give us a breakdown of your application process and the time you allocated to each part of the process?
I'll simply tell you, most of my applications I submitted right on the deadline. I was editing my my SOP right until the deadline was about to pass. I think I had 3 or 4 nights where I didn't sleep the entire night because the deadline was in the morning in Indian time, like 12 midnight in US time, which is somewhere like 9 or 10 a.m. in Indian time. So yeah, in terms of time management, I don't think I handled that aspect very well. It was more like do I feel comfortable with where my application is at? Now,
Got it.
like I said, a disclaimer. I don't feel this is a good way to go about your applications.
Got
This is
it.
just the
Yes.
way I did it, but thankfully it did work out for me. Even after I had applied, I still had regrets. I felt like, no, I could have changed this, I could have changed that. So I don't feel, even if I tried to do that, like I'll just set this time, I don't think I would have still been able to stick to that.
Got
Because
it.
for me, I was just trying to refine my story as much as I could, and I feel you can just take that refinement, that standard for refinement which you have in your own mind,
Yes.
that can prevent you from being 100% complete.
This is the problem many of us face. We are always trying to do things in a perfect manner, but we often fail to give enough time to that perfection, and we are struggling between good enough and the perfect. And ultimately, we fail in our own minds that lead us to failing in reality. So this is what I have faced at a personal level as well. This is not good enough. I'm not good enough. I need to do more. And the deadline will pass, and we're like, "Ab to chala gaya deadline." Nothing can,
Yes, this
nothing can
happened
be
with me
done.
as well.
Yes, yes.
This happened with me as well. Like I was going to apply for Purdue University's cybersecurity program. I had written down an SOP for them, but it was very rough. It wasn't complete, and yeah, I mean, I let the deadline pass, and then I never applied for it.
Coming to the most exciting part, that is like the gist or the crux of this entire study abroad application. Uh, Coming from a non-CSE background, how did you, like, what was your approach to writing that SOP where you are able to convince the admission committee on your software engineering or relevant skills?
The SOP is like very program specific. So
Yes.
CMU's SOP, for example, asks you to write about two specific questions. One of the questions is about your relevant software engineering experience. Again, I had been fortunate to be given a very significant project at Clevo last year. So I wrote about that in detail. And at Maybank, like I was talking about the PDF generator project, I wrote about that. Usually, when someone thinks about software engineering or computer science, you start thinking about the logical things like I coded this, I did this, I did that. But there are a lot of non-technical things as well. So the idea was that I want to portray myself as someone who has a lot of scope for growth, who will make a great fit for the program. So the program will be a good fit only if I show that I have scope to grow as a software engineer. Or like whatever program you are applying
Yes.
for, that needs to be the general idea behind it. That
True.
you are showing yourself as someone who has a lot of scope for growth, where that program is going to enable you to grow to new heights. So
Got it.
for me, like I was applying for software engineering programs, there I talked about like I faced these problems at my work, which were, some of them were around code refactoring, not following the best practices, and some non-technical things as well, like team communication. Like I'm just giving very vague
That's
descriptions
okay.
here,
Yes.
but yeah, I mean, I talked about all these things, and then I spoke about how this program is going to include all of this. It's going to teach me about all of this, and that's going to fix my gaps in knowledge. And then I also definitely talked about that I don't have a background in CS, and since I have now decided that I want to be a software engineer, I would love to get this degree so that I have a firm academic, theoretical underpinnings of my practical knowledge. So it was a combination of these two things. And one factor which I highlighted in all of my SOPs, again, like I said at the beginning, my intention was to negate my GPA as much as possible. As we began this conversation from my school days, so I actually spoke a little about my childhood as well. Like I had faced certain difficulties in my childhood, like personal life difficulties. So I showed them a journey. Like this is the journey I have been. These are the problems I have faced. Like I talked about my general life. Like that had nothing to do with computer science or software engineering. I was just talking about a general human level, like this thing. Like I've faced problems and I've been able to overcome them. That makes me a good candidate, because this program is going to be a challenge. It is a challenging thing to take on. You have to attack the application from as many angles as possible. Utilize whatever is at your disposal. For me, I had this personal story of mine which I could use. One thing which we have not gone through in this conversation so far is that I am very much into gymming, like bodybuilding and powerlifting. I started doing that in college. I spoke about my gymming journey. I taught myself how to build muscle, how to diet properly, all of this was self-taught. Through this, I was able to compete in national level competitions and
Yes.
win a medal as well. So again, this is an achievement which has nothing to do with software engineering or computer science. But
Yes.
I
Yes.
made a point to highlight this. I highlighted it in a way like my life was falling down, like I was failing in my classes, but
Yes.
this gave me an escape. And through this, I found the positivity to move into a new field, software engineering, and then I utilize that positive energy in my career as well.
Got it.
And so, yeah, I mean, I basically showed them a trajectory wherein my intent was when they read my story, they should come off thinking that, yeah, this guy has some hope. So we know this guy has a very bad academic record and whatnot, but yeah,
Got it.
based on the story he has told, maybe we should give him a chance.
Understood. And makes a lot of sense. Like, it's when you're writing an SOP for an international program, it's not just your academics, your GPA, or you getting a research internship at an IIT or a DART Vice Fellowship. It's much more than that. It's a story that you portray, that why would studying at TU Berlin or why would studying at Stanford change the way you would do things otherwise. And also it's a value match for the university where they see that a candidate of that caliber or that particular skill niche coming to their program, will he or she or they add any particular value to them? So it's a match from both the ends. It's no more just a CGP or a number that you can be proud of. Okay, I've gotten a X number of scores in GRE, or I am a 9.8 pointer, so I'll definitely get into X program. It generally does not work that way, but there are a lot of multitude of factors to it, and no one really knows what works and what does not. So yeah.
Yeah, it's a huge black box. Yeah, I
Yes.
think the research MS programs, definitely there's a lot more
True.
focus on academics there. There they don't care about what medals you have won in gymming and whatnot. But yeah, in the non-thesis and the professional masters and in the other programs, you can definitely highlight that. And like Avinash is saying, I also mentioned this, like by taking me in, they would be adding to their academic community. Again,
True.
it's you are selling yourself to them. It's not that they are doing a favor to you. You are going
Yes.
there
True.
and you are going to add to their community as well.
So think of it this way: like in India, what we do, we get a rank, we get into an IIT, NIT, or any other engineering college, and similarly for all other fields. And an institution does not really care of what you do after you get into them or after you graduate, until unless you build a unicorn in India and you are a graduate from an IIT. But US or any other global institution works in a bit different way. So they care for everything that you bring in. Let's say you bring in a very diverse perspective. So that is valuable to them because they know that in India being in a class of 25, 30 odd folks will change the way other folks will be thinking or doing case studies or solving a problem. So then the total output of the class might enhance, or their community might have someone who rose from, like, it's a story of a phoenix, right? Who does not want them people like them in their own arsenal? Down the line, if an India goes out and builds a unicorn in US, CME will be more than happy to like market him, saying that he's my alum, or Anindya would do the same. So it's a sales pitch going on throughout our lives. We are always selling ourselves, and the other person is buying us or probably selling them backwards to us. So never think of any of the processes that in the study abroad guidance as they will not take me, I'm not good enough. Might be a case, but generally it's about how can you sell it to them? Can you sell yourself to them? So that's the only thing that's the only problem we are trying to solve. That's the problem solving skill we discussed a bit earlier.
This Indian mindset, that is actually the biggest problem I also had in the beginning. Like that's why I felt the way I felt, like, oh, I don't have any chance, because I was thinking in that Indian way, like I have this GPA which is sort of like my rank. I don't have a rank, I don't get in. Does not
True.
matter how good I am at running, swimming, whatever. Like
True.
you could be a Olympic gold medalist in something, but IIT Bombay does not care. You don't have this rank, you don't get in. So yeah, I mean, if not if, like that's where people who already had done their masters abroad, who were studying abroad, that's where talking to them helped. And yeah, that's where I feel the community which Avinash is building, where he'll provide access to people like me who have done this. Like the biggest benefit is going to be you'll have someone who is
Yes.
going to help you change that mindset straight away.
True.
And
True.
like I said, that's the biggest roadblock in the beginning.
True.
Along the way,
True.
you'll figure out a lot of things for yourself. But yeah, that initial guidance, like where to start looking towards, and going past that thinking like I'm not good enough, because that's where I also started.
Yes.
And I did waste a lot of time in the beginning. I said that I gave my GRE in April. I don't think I started seriously researching for universities up until August, I would say. And within that time between April and August, I was just continuing with that feeling within me that there's no point. So maybe if I knew from the beginning that no, there is a point, even though I was
Yes.
getting
Yes.
told by people around me, little by little, I was gaining some confidence. But yeah, if I had someone who had gone through that same journey, if I knew that person exists and he's talking to me, then yeah, of course, I would have also done the same, because
True.
that guy there is a living example of what I want to do.
So, did you use any of the AI tools like ChatGPT or other LLMs for your aid or writing up your SOP? And what would be your suggestions on how can students leverage AI to enhance their application?
So definitely, I made extensive use of AI, ChatGPT in particular. I didn't use any other AI tool. I used ChatGPT for my SOPs to rephrase my story in a more story-like format. So the thing is, you need to have your story. Like, definitely do not lie. I think you can get away with lying, but it's not a good thing to do, because in the off case that you get caught, it's a huge
Yes.
black mark on your face. Like, just don't take that risk. Anyway, there's no fun as well. Like, if you get into
True.
lying or something, you will always have that within your mind. There's no point to it. You won't have genuine happiness. That's the most difficult part actually in the SOP. You need to figure out what your story really is. That requires a lot of time. I also had read this initially, like, don't think your SOP is going to be done within a day or two. You'll take a month or 2 months. And even I was thinking, like, what's the big deal? I already know this is the story.
Yes.
But like I said, since I was refining my story up until the deadline, I know it to be very true. I would come up with bullet points like, okay, these are my achievements. This is what I've done. Then I would write in a rough manner. I would connect all the dots with my own broken English and whatever, like without any format or whatever. Then through ChatGPT, GPT-4 specifically, I would feed it that data. I would tell it that I'm applying for this. This is my background. Give me this in a format where it flows very well. Again, with prompts, you have to experiment with different things. I don't think I had a format for the prompts where I would tell it like about me. This is the program I am applying to. This is my story. Give me the SOP. But I did not like I had this format, but I did not reuse the prompts. I would rewrite the prompts again and again. I would experiment like what is working well, and like I said, you keep on refining. Like you won't find one SOP. Like initially you'll feel like, oh, this is it. Like this is the best thing. But give it a day or two, you'll find 10 flaws within that SOP yourself. So yeah, I mean that's where that's where AI really helps. It helps you organize your thoughts without which if you had to do it yourself, it would take much longer.
True.
It's a definite time saver. But like I said, the story is all mine. In the entire SOP, even if it is written by ChatGPT, if he has chosen the words what are written in the SOP, the story that it is portraying is 100% true. AI is not cheating. Like it's like if you get your SOP reviewed by your family, by your friends, they will also give you some advice. You're going to integrate it into your SOP.
Got it. So most of you don't take AI as a plagiarism or something like. you can take it as a Grammarly Ultra Pro version where you
Yes,
get more
yes.
enhanced language features to improve the way you write things. Because as Indians, we have limited second language capabilities, even though some of us speak it very well. But while writing or while portraying your thoughts, that some limited vocabulary might come as a hurdle, and that's where tools like Grammarly or Wordtune and whatnot, Quillbot comes to the rescue, and similar is what ChatGPT is. So, Anindya, moving ahead, uh, like you got your story, you got a first draft, though you were writing it till the last moment of deadline. Did did you get it reviewed from some of your friends, college seniors, or probably alums from the particular programs?
I was getting it reviewed by as many people as possible. I
Got it.
would get it reviewed by a couple of seniors who had both done their masters, so they had more experience as well. But
Yes.
again, I was trying to get that criticized in as many ways as possible. So the way I was looking at it was that it's like a dark room. The dark room is an analogy for the errors or the scope for improvement in the SOP. And I don't know what is there in the dark room. And getting it reviewed by different people, they are going to shine light in the room from different angles. So you'll get to see different ways you might be able to improve some part of your story. Again, you don't have to take all the advice, but you'll you'll yourself get an idea once you are that far ahead in your journey. You'll yourself know what
True.
you need to do, what you don't need to do.
So earlier in the conversation, you mentioned about getting your LOR reviewed from one of the alums who gave you a tip on writing about talking to alumni. So and
uh,
also you also
SOP, not the
SOP,
LOR, the
sorry,
SOP. Yeah.
SOP. So and also you mentioned initially that your idea was to shift focus from your low CGPA to other parts of the application. And LOR is something that all the universities ask for, somewhere two or sometimes even three. And given that you had 3 years of professional work, what was your strategy behind getting that perfect LOR that highlights your strengths as a software developer? And how did you go about selecting the recommenders? And what was your idea behind which quality to highlight from which recommender?
I think I just figured it along the way, and I was fortunate enough with the timing where I was able to get the right mix of people to write the LORs for me. I feel the stars aligned at the right moment because the way my LOR, I got LORs from two of my professors from college. One was a maths professor, so he would write for me from a mathematical computer science perspective. One was from a mechanical engineering professor. This is the same professor who I talked about, who took an interest into my poor academics and trying to help me. So he would write about me from that perspective. Like, he saw the potential within me. He knew I was facing problems, and he would talk about my overall qualities. Then I got an LOR from my supervisor at Maybank and my supervisor at Plivo. So these were four LORs. And finally, I also fortunately got an LOR from the CTO of Plivo, who I met during our offsite event in Bangalore. So yeah, I got this mix of five people, and then some programs allowed me to submit up to five LORs. CMU allowed me to submit five LORs, and I specifically asked them as well, will it affect my application negatively if I submit that many? Because this is also some sort of general advice you might see online, that don't submit too many LORs. So I took that advice, and the way I took that advice was that all my LORs have to talk about something different. They
True.
cannot
Yes.
have an intersection. Like, even if there is an intersection, it has to be minimal. So basically, use these LORs again to paint as much of my 360-degree picture as possible. My maths professor talked about this project because this is from a computer science background, so he has the credentials to talk about this.
Yes.
My mechanical engineering professor talked about how I am as a person, how my actual intellectual abilities are, talked about my in class interaction and how he was able to figure out that yes, I have the intellectual abilities to be able to study advanced topics, and even though that might not be displayed in my transcript, that is the case. And he also mentioned about my extracurricular achievements. Then my Maybank supervisor talked about how I came from a non-technical background and I ramped up very quickly. I contributed to their very large code base, how I developed quickly as a software engineer. And my Plivo supervisor talked about again my technical abilities, but also uh, so the project I did at Plivo, that was pretty significant in terms of the overall company's revenue. The outcome of the project, in the financial terms, was a reduction of the company's annual expenses by roughly 10%, 8 to 10%, something like that, which is a huge project basically. So my Plivo supervisor talked about like how I don't only have the technical skills, but how I also look at the business side of things, like how I look at the bigger picture. The basic gist was my Maybank supervisor talks about early stages of a software engineer where I'm working on just the low level problems and stuff. So he talks more about my coding and whatnot. But by the time I'm in Plivo, I'm gaining some experience, so I'm expected to contribute more directly to the business. So the picture which is being painted is like uh, they are vouching for me, like yeah, the trajectory is upwards. So both of them are vouching for that. And then the CTO, his LOR is a complete black box because he never shared his LOR with me.
Got it.
So I don't know what he wrote. But he asked me to share all my contributions at Plivo up until that point. So I feel he might have basically talked about those things from a CTO perspective, like how
Got it.
important these changes have been and how Anindya has driven these changes by himself and how he see. Again, I'm speculating at this
Yeah.
point, so
Yes.
just
Yes.
quite,
Yes.
but yeah.
Got it. Got it. So now moving ahead, like I will discuss majority of the application part. The last part that few programs have is the interview. So how did you approach it? Did you take mock interviews or like anything that you did to excel at the last phase of the admission process? And generally, most of the interviews are given after you put in the application. So that's like a first round of application. You have cleared that.
So actually, to the programs that I applied to, only one of them had an interview, which was the UT Austin's MSITM.
Mhm.
And funny story is, again, I had no expectation of hearing back from UT Austin as well. UT Austin was my first admit, by the way. It was already March by the time I received an email from them telling me that they would like to interview me. I was completely overjoyed, obviously.
Yes.
But the thing is, by March, they had already released majority of their decisions. Since
Mhm.
actually that program begins in the summer semester rather than
Got it.
fall semester. So it was completely unexpected. I received an email like, let's say tonight, and the interview was scheduled for tomorrow. And actually, during that time, I had gone through some immediate crisis in my life. I didn't really have time to prepare as such, but what I did was just go over the program once again. Interview is more about like you need to demonstrate that during your interview that you know exactly what the program is about, so that you give them the confidence that you know what you're talking about, you know what you want, and you also know that this program is going to give this to you. The first thing which anyone would see in my application would be my GPA. So that
True.
was their question as well. We have been impressed by your application overall, but this is a huge red flag, and we need convincing. Like we need to hear from you. Like why is this the way it is, and why do you feel that this won't be a problem anymore? because the program is very intense. So yeah, I had a good answer for that.
To
Yeah.
everyone listening, again, being honest is sometimes the best thing to do, even though it might not feel that it is the best thing to do. Because as Indians, we are very prone, or we are very, what do you call, the first instinct that comes is ki, let's mend a story, let's create a story out of this, let's make ourselves the hero. I was not interested in mechanical because I was a founder of a $10 billion startup. But this is not the how the world works. Everyone understands that there are personal struggles and there are things that you cannot cope up with given the maturity and the age that you were in. So a general advice would be to just be honest whenever you are writing an application, and whenever you are writing, like you're talking to a program director of or an alumni for an interview, and that might land you an admit rather than lying to make them feel that you are a good candidate. So
No,
Anindya,
definitely.
almost
I again, this is good to reiterate this, but yeah, over the interview, I think I have also mentioned this over and over again. Like,
yes,
to be very honest, I I find it very difficult to be very honest myself. Like Avinash is saying, I think this is an Indian thing. we Our first instinct is to modify the story, but genuinely, I feel being honest in my SOPs, in my single interview, but otherwise as well, like in my emails, everywhere, like being as brutally honest as I could about my situation. I feel like that definitely uh, pulled the odds in my favor.
true, yes. So, like we have discussed the entire application journey. So now comes the part where we discuss the results, the converts. So, would love to know about the admissions and the scholarships you received, and why did you choose CMU over all the other admits?
So I think I've received five admits in total. Let me just recap. So CMU, UT Austin, University of Florida, University of Wisconsin Madison. Yeah, and University of Minnesota. So for all of these, CMU is the Master of Software Engineering.
Yes.
UT Austin was for MS in Information Technology and Management. UF was a MSCS thesis, proper MSCS program. Uh, UW Madison was a capstone program in computer science, which is like it's like you take some courses in CS and then you can convert it into a master's program later on. Not exactly a master's program, but again, it is a genuine pathway to masters. And then the last is University of Minnesota for their MS in software engineering.
For everyone hearing, can you give us a brief, very short brief on what's the difference between MSCS and MS in software engineering?
Sure. So software engineering comes under CS. It's a very specific part of CS. It's like the focus is not necessarily just on coding, like coding and problem solving. Those are like what people think about when they think about CS. So software engineering is much more than that. It's about the overall process. It's about things like software architecture, communication. There are other aspects of it. Basically, if you are a software engineer, you yourself would know that there is a lot more to the job than just coding, documentation. There are a lot of things. So in this program as well, though, you have options for up to 5 electives, and you can take these from computer science. Like you can take this from any department in CMU, not just CS. So
Got it.
that was one good thing I liked, because I wanted to take some foundational courses in AI as well.
Got it.
There is
Got it.
one part of the program which is actually a huge uh, feature for the program. That's a 3 semester long studio project. So there's
Hmm.
no internship in this course. Why there is no internship is because their idea is so, like I said, there are 2 tracks for the program. One
Yes.
is the early track. Early track has an internship. So the idea is internship is useful for those students who are joining the industry now,
Hmm.
like someone who already has an experience If he goes into an internship, he's not going to like learn. He's going to learn about that company and their software, but he's not learning much about software engineering as a whole. Since he
Got it.
already has the experience, he already knows what software engineering is all about. Like he already has a good enough idea. So what instead they have us do is a 3 semester long studio project where companies team up with CMU to uh, give the students some problem or some feature which needs to be developed, and then there are groups of students, like 3 or 4 students, and then these groups basically act like a singular entity on their own,
Got it.
and then they apply the ideal software engineering principles, what you learn in the program as well. So
Got it.
that's the good part. Like you get an opportunity to apply what you are learning. That was a huge part for me, because this is one thing which I have noticed in my work experience as a software engineer as well. Like what we learn in college about like these are good practices, this is what you should do, those are rarely followed at work because there are a lot
True.
of constraints. It's not that companies are shoddy or something like that. There are a lot of constraints, but
True.
that's the entire point of this studio project, that you get an opportunity to apply what you learn.
Were there any unexpected challenges that you faced during your application journey?
The main problem I faced was that of time management only. Like some applications I missed out because I wasn't ready with the SOP, and I feel like applying for a lot of universities is a huge challenge. Like I said, I applied for 20 colleges 2025. It takes a huge toll on you because all my SOPs, I was personalizing them for the exact program that I was applying to. I was looking up the professors who were doing research in an area I was interested in. I was looking at the classes which the program is offering, which I'm interested in. Then you have to integrate that into your SOP. So I feel an overall estimation of work which I wanted to do, which I had to do, that would have helped. But again, I don't think how I could have estimated that, since I didn't know how much time it takes. But yeah,
Understood.
that's where a mentor might be able to help, because they have an idea like how much time
True.
it takes.
So, and do you have any tips for the aspiring students?
Starting early would be the best tip. Basically, start as early as you can. There is no substitute for the time you invest into learning on your own. I would say like try to put in as much time as you can yourself into learning about the programs, the universities, even the locations. The I mean, I was reading about geographies of places I was going to apply to. I read about Pittsburgh. I was reading about Silicon Valley. Reading about all these different places where these universities are located in.
So that's all from my end and India, and it was a great conversation. I hope all the viewers, or those who watch this in the coming future, they learn a lot from your journey, and they don't self-reject themselves. Like you are a great example of how one can, with the right dedication to their life, can pivot from like the king that we were talking about. That I personally saw that king after the first year of summer when he came back in the third sem. All this. Passion about gym, being disciplined, going to gym daily and whatnot. And at the same time, we started working in the racing team together. So yeah, I've seen that very closely, and I could see the transformation that he made out of his life. So I really hope all of you, those who listen to him, can like learn from his journey. Don't cancel or don't self-reject yourself. Let the authorized committees and admission committees do it for you. Don't self-reject. Thanks for watching this video. This was part 2 of our conversation with Anindya. If you already haven't watched part 1, watch it here. I hope you all enjoyed our conversation and found it very insightful and learned tips on how to pivot to software engineering and the role of grit in realizing one's dream. If you enjoyed our conversation, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. Share this video with your friends and spread knowledge. I'm Avinash and I'm building Mentara to revolutionize career mentorships. We'll be posting many such more amazing conversations with students from top global programs. Till then, stay tuned.